Marinero, the Sick Podcast. What a pleasure. What an honor. It's the first time I get to speak to Nick Kypreos, and I've wanted to do this for a while, and we're doing it tonight on the Sick Podcast. He is the director of hockey operations of Line Movement, and he basically has a hockey show. It's a content show. It's really, really popular. He joins us today. How you doing, bud?
Tony, Sammy, thank you for having me, man. It's the pleasure's all mine. I'm doing well. Under the circumstances, we've got a major lockdown here in Ontario.
Yeah,
and people are hanging in there. That's all. What choice do we have here, Tony?
Yeah.
But hopefully, someday soon we can look at all of this in the rearview mirror and find a way to move on. But right now, we're day to day.
Yeah. Maybe one day we can meet in a bar and we can have a beverage there that you have next to you there. What are you drinking exactly? What is that?
This is a company my wife and I started with family friends. It's called Little Buddha Cocktail. And a little over a year ago, we all sat around a kitchen table and talked about these ready to drink in cans and what we liked and what we didn't like. And then we made a wish list of what we wanted. We said, wouldn't it be great if it was organic, no sugar, gluten-free, keto-friendly, no preservatives? And one thing led to another, and we started searching on Google how to make these drinks. And then next thing you know, we've sold over 25,000 cases here in Ontario in the LCBO, and now we're trying to spread it nationally. We're in places like Newfoundland and Labrador, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, British Columbia, and I so badly want to bring it out to Quebec as well.
I hope so. If I can help you out with that in some way, shape, or form, you let me know. But,
thanks, Tony.
I'd love to try that. You have a sangria flavor?
Oh, we're working on a lot of flavors right now. We've got a pineapple rosemary, and we just launched a peach tea as our second flavor. So I'll throw that one in the suggestion box.
You know what? I like pineapple and I like peach. Sounds pretty cool. All right, Nick Kypreos, a 10-year NHL career, played with the Capitals, the Whalers, the Rangers, the Leafs. I have so much to talk to you about. I don't even know where to start, but it's the Sick Podcast, and it's brought to you by MyBookie. Use code SickPicks for a 50% deposit bonus. Bet, win, get paid. Let's start with your career, if I can. You won the Stanley Cup with the Rangers in 1994, and a lot of players that win the Cup, or everyone says, they don't realize what it takes to win the Cup until obviously they won it and all the hard work and the sacrifices. But in terms of the composition of a team, what does a team have to have, in your opinion, to win the Cup? What did that team have in 94? And do you think what it took in 94 to win a Cup, you can still win a Cup with those components in 2021?
Great question, Tony. And the answer is 100%. We know the game's evolved and it's changed in many ways, but I think it always comes back to the common denominator of your best players needing to be your best players, and you surround them with as much depth and character as you can. And that hasn't changed here in the year 2021. And we can look back and see the most recent Stanley Cup champions, including St. Louis, Washington, Tampa Bay, and nothing's changed. Your stars have to deliver on time, but this isn't a sport where one pitcher can control a whole game. We talk about depth. We talk about how good's your third and fourth line, and how much can they contribute, and how heavy can they play this time of year in the playoffs. And there's a level of success for that, and it's built from decade to decade, year to year, under the same kind of basic principles. Is that you need a hot goaltender, you need some tough scoring, and you need your role players, your support cast to be there for you. And Tampa Bay was living proof on that, especially with the late acquisitions last season, and Coleman, right, and Goodrow. Those guys put Tampa Bay over the top as much as Braden Point and Victor Hedman playing the starring roles, and that's how you win. Nothing will change this year.
Yeah. That was obviously the best moment of your career, and you had some ups and you had some downs, and unfortunately, it finished on a very difficult note when you suffered a concussion in a fight. That was, I think, within the 96-97 season with the Leafs. Fast forward now, we're in 2021. Everything we know about fighting, the concussions, the symptoms, the side effects, the depression that it's led to for some, the substance abuse that it's led to for others, players that have taken their own life. You know, I tell you now that in 2021, fighting, knowing all of that, is still in the game. Are you okay with it? Or because former enforcers usually are, or are you at the point where you're saying maybe we should move on to something else now?
I'm okay where we are, and I look at where fighting is and the role that it plays in 2021, and I look at it where it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and it's evolved. We don't have what we had 15, 20 years ago, which was on average 2 or 3 designated tough guys on each team that knew that they had to play a role like that every night. We just don't have that anymore. But I like the fact that it's still there for some guys that may need an outlet. And we've seen some fighting now still in the game, but it's a fraction of what we had, Tony. It's organically gone away on its own, but it's still there if the players need it. And they're the voice here. They're the gatekeepers along with the owners in terms of when they don't want it in the game, they'll be the first ones to raise their hand and say, we don't need it anymore, and it'll be gone. And that's okay. But the ones that still play it, their voices have still been heard, that I don't have to do it anymore. I feel no pressure to do it anymore. And on some nights, I don't know do we see a fight every 10 games now, 12 games? It's gone. It's virtually dried up on its own. We didn't have to take the rule out, but the players still want it in the game just in case. But it's gotten to the point where it's barely noticeable, if you ask me.
But, you know, besides the obvious and the McDavids of this world, and that's not the question I'm asking, of which player that you watch that you love the way they play. I mean, everyone's going to say McDavid, but that guy that is that hard-nosed guy, you know, I'm going to tell you, I'm crazy about Brady Tkachuk, the way he plays the game. I mean, this guy just hates to lose. But which one player do you think is a great blend of talent, character, hates to lose? You'd love to have him on your team if you could pick one guy.
Well, I watched Nazem Kadri here in Toronto over the last few years, and they ran out of patience with him. And we do know the notable suspensions in the playoffs against the Boston Bruins, but I do believe that he's a great fit for Colorado, and a perfect guy that can bring a ton of skill and play with a certain edge now. And as he learned to go into a playoff now and not be that guy that feels like he's got to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders to play a physical element. Yeah, I think he's evolved to the point where he'll be real good. He was real good in the bubble as well for Colorado, and unfortunately, their goaltending issues caught up to them in an earlier exit that they would have hoped last season in the bubble. But those are the type of guys that play the game hard and find ways to show skill, but bring some passion and emotion. There are some nights, Tony, that it's hard watching the game because although we may see flashes of skill, they don't bring the edge to the game where you're not emotionally invested in the hockey game like you were in the past. And those certain type of players can come out and do that. And you mentioned the Tkachuk brothers, and they can get you scoring a goal. They can get you with a little, stick in the gut. They can push the envelope, and, it doesn't have to be a Connor McDavid end-to-end rush to bring people to the edge of their seat and watch with anticipation. Those guys have the ability to do that. And, we have passionate fans in the game of hockey, but to bring out that passion, you got to play with passion. There's some nights that we don't have it. we can look at the past 2 seasons and go for obvious reasons. It's empty buildings, and there's some nights you're tired, and maybe the Montreal Canadiens, we're watching them go through it right now, where you're 4 nights in a week and you've got a pandemic and you got an empty building, and you're worrying about your wife and kids at home, and it's with reason. But we got to find a way to maintain those players in the game that can bring that passion out. Tom Wilson, wasn't too long ago, Tony, they were screaming for this guy to be out of the game. He's a goon. He's dangerous. We don't need him. And I think he's one of those guys. Josh Anderson is now learning that he can be a Tom Wilson type of guy. I can watch this guy, and I can look forward to a great rush, a great shot, a great hit. And this guy is willing to drop his gloves too. So I hope that Josh can stay healthy, because that has been an issue in the past.
Of course.
But when you play the game hard, those are the chances you have to take.
It's a sick podcast. Go to sportbuffshop.com for all of your officially licensed sports apparel and more. Use code SICK15 for 15% off on all of their items. With Nick Kypreos, Director of Hockey Operation of Line Movement. Nick, I love where this is going. I'm going to tell you why. You went from Toronto and Calgary, and he goes to Colorado. And these are 2 teams, especially Colorado, that people believe have a real good chance to maybe go to the final this year, possibly win the Stanley Cup. Let's start with Toronto. So you know what it takes because you were on a cup-winning team. Do the Leafs finally, with some additions that they made, and Foligno being one of them, another goalie coming in, and they've made some solid additions. Can this finally be their year, especially since considering that a lot of people believe that this is the easier path for them in the North Division, which is with the Canadian teams? Yes or no, do the Leafs have what it takes?
I think they have what it takes to get themselves close. Whether or not I would look at them in a Final Four, I would guess at this point that they would be the least favorite in a conference Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not saying that they can't still find a way to put themselves in a position of, say, the Dallas Stars and get to a Stanley Cup final. And Tony, we know. We don't know who's going to go in a conference final or a Stanley Cup final, and who's beat up, who possibly just caught COVID, who's got the hot goaltender. All of that comes into play. And if Toronto can get themselves into a Final Four, then who knows what other teams would look like back then. They should have an easier path. We do know that when we look at the 4 divisions, we often look at the North Division and say this one has been the weakest. It's been the most inconsistent. And Toronto just came off of their worst run of this shortened season, but they've been the best out of anybody in this North Division. Everybody else, it's flip a coin whether they show up or not. I can't say that about the East, the Central, or the West. So if they can get out fairly clean in the North Division and they can stay healthy, they will put themselves in a predicament that Toronto Maple Leaf fans have not seen since 1967. And I include that run in the early 90s against Vancouver and LA in the Doug Gilmour, Wendell Clark era, that this team would put themselves in the most legitimate chance to win a Stanley Cup since 67.
How about Colorado?
Vegas, pick them, right? And now Minnesota's put themselves, Tony, in a position where we got to take them seriously. And I think they're 4-1-1 against Vegas so far this season. So I look at that West Division and I go, holy moly! Like, what if by chance St. Louis comes in and nudges Arizona out? If you're Vegas or Colorado and you assume that they're going to win the division, is a St. Louis team on the outside looking in with a little over half a dozen games to go. If St. Louis gets hot here, I'm not sure I want to face them, especially with a lot of guys still there from their Stanley Cup run. So that's going to be a battle to get out of the West. No question about it. But Colorado, I like. We often refer to Nathan McKinnon as the second best hockey player in the world. And there were some nights in the bubble last year we said he could be the best in the world. That's how good he was. That's how dynamic he is. He's got all the Connor McDavid elements, but possibly plays it with a little bit more of a physical edge. So I think with Devin Dubnyk coming in, and Dubnyk was also the Leafs' first choice, not Riddick, to go in there at the trade deadline. I think Devin Dubnyk could be an interesting piece to all of this moving forward if, in fact, he needs to come in. So, Makar, these are world-class guys on Colorado. There's no question that they're poised for a great run here.
With Nick Kypreos, who's one of the best insiders in the game, one of the top, one of the premier. You had a scoop even earlier today. Noah Hannafin's season is over with the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, that one hurt.
One of the big scoops you had were 2 months shy of your PK Subban trade to Nashville for Shea Weber. And I have a feeling I know where you got it too, because I know who you're friends with. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We never divulge our sources. All right. But that was one of those scoops where everyone just remembers where they were.
Yeah.
You most likely got a text message that day, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, whether it was a call or a text.
It started with a call that worked into stamping it with a text. Yes.
So when you got that text that deal was done.
Yes.
What was your initial reaction? Like, I know you knew that something was going to happen, but when that was actually the deal and it was Subban to Nashville for Weber, who was 3 years and 9 months older, what did you think at the time? And what do you think almost 5 years later?
Well, I said, I'm not sure how clean you keep it on that show, boys, but I had been on that case for about a good couple of months, and I knew. And
by the way, if I can,
yes.
So was I. I saw that one coming from a mile away. I actually I drove to the draft, which I usually don't go to the draft, but I drove to the draft in Buffalo, Nick.
Buffalo, of course.
Because I thought it was going down there that weekend and PK Subban was getting traded. So I wasn't surprised it was happening either.
Good.
I saw all the signs, but please continue.
Well, and it really started from what I was hearing about the frustration, the turnovers. Remember the game in Columbus where PK coughed up the puck, and there was just a lot of noise coming out of Montreal that PK just isn't the guy.
If memory serves me well, I believe it was in Colorado.
Oh, you're right.
And they lost by a score of 3-2, and it was midway through the third period or something like that. And then, Michel Therrien was not happy.
That to me was the turning point. On where this was going with PK Subban. So I had stayed on that. The consistent stories out of Montreal were that they're not sure about the PK moving forward. There was the fact that he was going to start entering an age where a no move, no trade was kicking in.
Correct.
And if they were going to do this, they were going to do it now.
Yeah.
So that stayed relatively consistent. And of course, the story started to really get going in Buffalo. And I can't recall the general manager, but I want to say.
And if I can, Nick, if you recall, Max Pacioretty was named captain of the Montreal Canadiens. PK Subban, there was a quote or two that kind of irked Pacioretty. It didn't look like they were on the same page. There seemed to be a division in the room with some with Pacioretty, some with PK, or at least, and
let's just say, Tony, they weren't fans of each other.
They were not the president of each other's fan club. Correct.
So all of that came into play. And there were some rumblings about Mark Bergevin shopping PK at the draft. I think there was another general manager that commented that I'd like to get in on it. I want to say Jim Benning in Vancouver, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know if he got fined or not for being vocal on PK Subban.
Yeah.
But whatever the rumblings were, I just seemed to be the only one that really believed that it was going to happen. Everybody else kind of shook it off. And, you've lived Mark Bergevin now for the last little while, including going into this last trade deadline when he's nothing's going to happen. And, this is our team. And he did the same thing. He squashed the the PK rumors, and I'm not shopping PK, and I didn't buy into it. So I just stuck with it, right into the July 1st free agency.
And so did I. And I'm going to tell you, Nick, I'll tell you what was I thought besides all of those things, and it probably would have happened anyway. But one of the nails in the coffin were about a week before the NHL had their award ceremony in Vegas. And PK was there at the award ceremony. I think they were making him, he was doing some emceeing, of course, because he does such an awesome job with the microphone. And, he was asked about their shortcomings that season. And he was asked if, he basically said, and at the end of the year, he said, he was asked about Michel Therrien and whether or not, they were cool and if he was going to be back. And he said, I don't know if he's going to be back. And he didn't go out of his way to say they were cool. He was like, I don't know if he's going to be back, and we'll see. And at the awards ceremony, PK said, you know what? We failed from a player standpoint, from a management standpoint, from an ownership standpoint. Yeah. None of us did enough. And knowing Montreal, like, you want to call out the players, it's one thing. But if you're calling out the owner and management, and albeit, maybe some people will say he was right, but for me, that was the nail in the coffin. Once he said that, I'm like, and I heard the soundbite, I'm like, you'll be traded.
And of course, when you're talking about PK, there's a lot that comes with PK, and that's, of course, that outgoing personality. And there was always the old school mentality that it's team first, and really no individual kind of at that level of what PK was doing off the ice. So that also came into play. To make a long story short here, Tony, that day we knew a lot happened, including the Taylor Hall trade from Edmonton, Stamkos resigning. And no, I was not surprised that PK, I got word that it was official, or it was moving towards being official, that he was being traded. But my socks fell off when I first heard Shea Weber. I had to go back and say, are you sure this might be a mistake? And they said, absolutely not. That was the first rumbling that, like, Shea Weber's name never came up, never rumored. This guy was the rock of the Nashville Predators. That one blew me away, that it was Shea Weber for PK Subban. I pushed the send button, and I'm like, God, I hope I'm right on this.
Montrealers, are you tired of going to the gas station? Use Fuel It service, whether you're at home, work, or anywhere in between. Download the Fuel It Canada app today. Fuel It, bringing gas to the 21st century. Speaking of gas, 5 years later, Shea Weber is running out of gas. All right. He's on the decline. He's going to turn 36 in August. He's still valuable and he's still serviceable, but the law of physics are kicking in. Nick, I can't stress this enough, right? I think you're amazing as an insider. You are never wrong, or hardly ever wrong. But there was a scoop last year, and my take's probably going to surprise you. There was a scoop last year, and if I could just read the tweet,
absolutely.
It said February 12th, 2020.
Yeah.
Sources say Shea Weber injured season over.
Yes.
And his future in question. Told injury is related to foot that was surgically repaired in 2018.
Yes.
While waiting for swelling to alleviate and further confirmation, surgery seemed unavoidable going into this week.
Yes.
That tweet caused a storm
Oh
in
my God. You
Montreal,
have no
right?
idea, Tony.
Like
You have
you
no
probably,
idea.
yeah. You're probably still getting texts about it from people saying, you were wrong. Okay. But I want to get to that in just a second here.
Yes.
Now, Shea Weber did not retire. Shea Weber is still playing hockey. Shea Weber came back. But I'm going to tell you something. And this is the information I was given, was that Shea Weber at one point is going to need a surgery here. And the surgeon has said that if he's going to have the surgery after the surgery, he won't be able to play hockey again. If this is accurate, the information that I was given on this, obviously he is gutting it out and he is playing through pain.
Oh,
I have to ask you, Nick, because
such
you
a
don't
warrior.
just put stuff out there for the sake of putting them out there.
No.
If you tweeted that, you got some big time information.
Listen,
were you told the same thing?
I stand by that tweet at that particular time. Okay. That was the information. That was the worry of the Montreal Canadiens. You got to remember, okay, how this whole thing played out at that particular time. And the word was out of Montreal, they were scared. They were scared to the point where they needed to go back to the original doctor and find out what the heck was going on. And when I released that, Bob McKenzie also said that his season was likely over. That was the information that Montreal was receiving at the time. And when he went down there, under the discretion of his doctor, they told him, listen, it's not in great shape. It's not, but you will recover from this enough to go back and play. So what was still perceived, I think after the initial analysis from the doctor, Montreal, I think, put out an announcement that he was going to be out 4 weeks, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
No. They said it.
Yeah.
Okay, they said it. 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I think he was playing the next game.
Yeah.
So they also had no idea what was going on. Yeah. But I do know that there were issues with their doctors for a while. Whether or not they were in a position to know exactly what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, Tony, I can assure you the Montreal Canadiens were really worried about the health of Shea Weber and where he was long-term. So I tip my hat to Shea Weber. I still watch him today.
Yeah.
I know he's barely on one leg.
Yeah.
Okay. And there are some nights it's tough for him to get up and down.
He's all hard
and move laterally. I watched him score a power play goal, against Calgary tonight, and I could see the passion and emotion in his face as he went down the bench saying, I'm still here. I can still shoot the puck. I can still get things done.
Biggest game of the season for the Canadiens, going into the game with a 4-point lead over the Calgary Flames for the fourth and final playoff spot in the North. And he scores the first goal of the hockey game. The Canadiens win by a score of 2-1.
But he is on his last legs right now in terms of at the end of his career. Does that mean he can play another year if he wants? Can he play another 2? At what? This is the decision he's going to make. Does he want to play at 80%, 70%, 60%? He's never going to be 100%. We know that now. And there's some tough nights to watch. And where does this leave the Montreal Canadiens next year? Where does it leave it with the cap? Those are questions that they're going to have to figure out. But I stand by my information, Tony.
Yeah,
and listen, at the end of the day, we could sit here and say, today, this is what the information is. What tomorrow brings, we don't know. But I'm just telling you what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And after 20 years of being in this business, I think I've done okay.
Well, you've done great. You're one of the best. And Nick, I'm going to tell you something. I heard, and I don't know if this is accurate, but I heard that he's going to have a surgery at the end of, at one point, like he's going to have a surgery. And when he does, like he wouldn't be able to put on the skates after that. And, listen, he could prove us. I mean, he's obviously a gamer. He's a warrior. But if I were a betting man and there's 5 years left on his deal after this year, Nick Kypreos, I would bet that Shea Weber is not going to finish off his contract. And at one point, he'll call it a day. And I don't know if it's going to be an LTIR or whatever it's going to be, but I think it's just, for now, but like you said, tip your hat. He's obviously a gamer. He's obviously a warrior. We're talking Canadiens hockey now, and Carey Price is out with an injury. He suffered a concussion. His stats have not been great this year. Jake Allen, who's the backup, has had better stats. He has about 30 goalies ahead of him who have a better goals against average. He has over 50 goalies who probably have a better save percentage. Makes $10.5 million, Nick. I don't know if that contract's straight away. And he does have a no movement clause, but how do you see the situation between Carey Price and the Montreal Canadiens evolving? The Canadiens are up against the cap. They have a window, which is now, you would think. Price has a no movement, which would lead you to believe that he'll finish off his contract in Montreal. But everyone's realizing that $10.5 million on a goalie in today's National Hockey League is a lot of money. I'm sure the other teams realize that too. What does your gut tell you with Carey Price and the Canadiens? Do you have a gut feel on that?
The only gut feel I have is Carey Price isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Mm-hmm. That's my gut feel, that they're very much committed. And as long as Bergevin's there, he's got to make it a top priority to still find a way to make Carey Price work for the Montreal Canadiens. And the only focus they have is to try to get him better and get him in a position where he can recuperate and be the guy that they signed, that they think that they signed.
Yeah.
And it's almost a ship that Bergevin's going to have to go down with, because Seattle's not interested in Carey Price unless Carey Price can show everybody that he is worthy of $10.5 million a year. So good on Jake Allen getting a win out of Calgary to kind of solidify, I think, their playoff berth. But I'm not sure where this thing ends, whether or not it's Jake Allen's net or Carey Price's, but it's in the best interest of Marc Bergevin to hope that Carey Price recovers in a short period of time, gets some games in, and is ready to carry the Montreal Canadiens. That's the only way this thing saves itself. And by chance, if it doesn't work that way, Carey Price will get an off season to recover off of a concussion and try it again next season. Mm-hmm. Now, if it gets off to an ugly start again, chances are, now we're in a predicament on truly what you do with Carey Price, but not still this early in his contract. I'd have to see him struggle next season to think that there is no future for Carey Price, and whether it is picking up $5 million on a trade and 50% of the contract or not, or buying him out. But
yeah,
it's next season for me. It's not any time this season or in this off season.
It's the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro, and you can follow us on all social media platforms and watch us and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Sick Podcast. He is Nick Kypreos. Two more quick ones on the Canadiens, Nick, very quickly. But Cole Caufield made his NHL debut in Calgary. He logged just short of 16 minutes of play. He had 4 shots on goal, some of which were, you saw his ability to shoot the puck. He looked comfortable out there. Cole Caufield, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, give the kid full credit here. You're not coming in on a regular season, even in November, December. We're talking some high intensity out of Calgary and Montreal to save their season. So it's not a perfect scenario for someone to come in and play their first National Hockey League game, let alone put in 15 and a half, 16 minutes and lead the game in shots on goal. I think 4, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Now, granted, all of them were low percentages shots at a pretty tough angle.
Yeah.
But you saw the wheelhouse, the mindset of Cole Caufield being a pure shooter.
Correct.
And he's already got an NHL shot. And I do believe that every game that we're going to see out of Cole Caufield for the Montreal Canadiens, we will see glimpses of what that shot will turn into one day for the Montreal Canadiens. I have no doubt in my mind this guy's going to put the puck in the net at a pretty good level. How great he ends up being is up to him. But I saw enough to say that there's a great future there. The only thing now is that you're playing amongst pros. This isn't college. You can't just shoot the puck at every angle. There's going to be times when, a Philip Deneau or someone's going to calm him down a little bit and say, hey, you find that area where you got a split second to move the puck, right? Yeah. So he's gonna have to pick that up. He doesn't have to pick it up tomorrow, but those are some of the things that I'm sure the Canadiens, the coaching staff, and the players will start working with Cole on. Is take a deep breath, get your head up. Sometimes a bad angle shot is a bad play, and we need to kind of give and go and make calmer plays out there. But I think he's going to be a real good player.
Nick Kypreos, I'd love to get you back on the Sick Podcast when the playoffs come around, but I know how popular you are. I'm not the only one who wants you on my show, especially if the Canadiens would play the Leafs. So I'll ask you now.
It's coming. I think it's coming.
Just in case you're going to be too busy, I'll ask you now. This Canadiens team that won versus Calgary but has lost 8 of their last 12 is the complete opposite of the team that started the season that was red hot and hardly lost the game. In your opinion, the Canadiens make the playoffs. Can they be the team that they were in the first month of the season? Yes or no?
I don't know if they can hit that level, but I think it's a nice blueprint for them to close out the Calgary Flames in Calgary with a win, with the type of hockey that they're going to have to play to be successful. And if they go back and look at the video of the way the Columbus Blue Jackets shut down Matthews and Marner in the qualifying round, they can have success against the Toronto Maple Leafs, but they're going to have to find ways to beat them 2-1. Matthews and Marner are right up there with Draisaitl and McDavid, Rantanen and McKinnon. Those are the 3 of the best duos on the planet, and they're gonna have to shut the door big time. I like the chances a lot better with Carey Price than I do Jake Allen. I think all the Canadian fans do, but he's going to have to get healthy, and he's going to have to get really good, really fast for that to happen.
If Montreal plays Toronto in the playoffs, if the Leafs win, I send you Montreal smoked meat and bagels. If the Leafs win, you send me Little Buddha.
Oh, I love it.
Pineapple.
I love it. Absolutely. Pineapple and rosemary.
Pineapple or rosemary. That's, you know what?
I'll get you.
Let me know when you're going to. He's in Quebec. He's the director of hockey operations of Line Movement. He is Real Kipper at noon, and you can follow him on his YouTube channel. Nick Kypreos, I hope you had as much fun doing this tonight as I had.
I loved it.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks,
I'm glad,
man.
Tony, and thank you for the kind words. And we will speak again, and I will always make time for you.
You're excellent at what you do, man. I really enjoyed having you on. Thanks so much. We'll do it again sometime.
All right. Enjoy the rest of the season.
Thank you, you too. He is Nick Kypreos. I'm Marinero. It's the Sick Podcast. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Sick Podcast. Thanks, Kipper.